CoupleyFit fam. Welcome to the first episode of the CoupleyFit podcast. We are so excited to have you here. If you didn't know, we want to give you a little update. We had our first podcast in 2020. We recorded a few episodes. We weren't consistent, but we said, you know what? Let's rebrand and let's relaunch in 2025. And let's talk all things health, marriage, and mindset.
I'm so excited.
We're so excited.
2.0.
2.0. So we are your hosts. I am Deanna Mangum.
Kurt Mangum, the second.
And this episode is going to be about the infamous motto of, is happy wife, happy life true?
There's so much to unpack here because I feel
So
like
much.
it's talked about so often, and the expectation I feel like for so many people is that it's happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think before we dive into kind of this deeper conversation around that, I have a couple of questions that I think are a little like icebreakers, kind of get to know us. So the first one is, would you rather get free plane tickets or free accommodations for the rest of your life? This is so hard.
Free plane tickets.
And I would say free accommodations because I want to know where I'm staying. A flight, I can catch a flight whenever. I'm not worried about that. But my accommodations, I need to know where I'm staying and how that's going to work out for me. I'm very adamant about that.
I think that's a sign that we're on the same page because now we fly free.
You know, let's
Free
fly
flight, free accommodations.
and let's have free accommodations. Like done
Boom.
and done. Okay, second one. What 3 items would you bring on a deserted island?
My Bible,
Yes.
water, a generator.
Okay, so you're going really practical. Maybe I'm going more,
Judge-free zone.
I'm going more women, more skincare. I would bring Laneige lip mask, lip gloss. The ladies who know, they know, okay? They know. I'm bringing my Black Girl sunscreen.
Oh.
And then I'm also going to bring, I like, if you have the Bible, I'm going to bring more water because we drink so much water. We drink about 5 gallons in 2 days.
If I got the water, I would have loved for you to have some food. I would have loved for you to have some food for us.
Listen, first off, I took the
Survival class. You did take survival class.
I took a survival class
People
in 6th grade.
People don't know that.
I can get us in the desert. Like
People
if we're in the
would-
desert, I can get us water.
It's true.
I can get us some sort of food.
It's true.
I can do it.
And I'm gonna be
I can do
honest.
it.
I would also have to test.
I know how to start a fire.
I would also have to test that theory where people say like, "Send me out to the jungle," you know what I mean, and like save the bear, right?
Yes.
Like when you're really out in the jungle, you've got to like maybe catch that bear.
Wait,
I'm just saying, you may
we're
have to.
catching bears now?
I mean, if there's no food,
We're gonna save that. We're gonna put a pin in that. Okay, last one. What's the best relationship advice you've received from a movie or a TV show?
this is easy.
Oh,
Shout out to Will Smith. One of my favorite movies all
You
time
love
is
this movie.
Hitch. The Date
You love
Doctor.
this movie.
If you haven't watched Hitch, you need to go back and watch it and take some notes because I feel like Will Smith was speaking to me. I was like, I want to outkick my coverage. What are the keys that he's dropping? And it was like not only spontaneous, it was thoughtful. It was like everything was intentional. Every date, every thought. Like
That's
even
true.
sometimes
That's
they
true.
even
That's
too
true.
much.
That's true.
But like I was literally
The
like
90-10?
I had my note 90. Can you come 90? Let her come 10. Like I wrote all of this down.
Come
So
on.
shout out to Will Smith.
okay, love that because you do love that movie. Like that is when we
All time.
first met. You were
Word for word.
I remember when you told
You
me
stay
that, I
here.
looked at you kind of like, what?
And
That's so
for people
random.
that don't know, this is a little bit like personal, but like I don't have all that much rhythm. People would think I have great rhythm and I can dance, but like
That's a fact.
when he said stay here, I
Yeah,
was
that's a
like,
fact.
I need to stay here. I need to stay here on the dance floor.
That's so true. That's so true. Okay, so for me, I would say it's actually going to be more of a podcast. And I believe it was Michelle Obama, and she was on, it was like an Essence kind of fireside chat, something of that nature. And she mentioned that in your relationship, it's never going to be 50-50. There's going to be times where somebody's going to have to go 70-30. It's going to be a 60-40. It's never a 50-50 relationship. And I just thought that was so interesting that she said that. Because again, right, she is the first lady, in my opinion, of all time. And then you also have Barack Obama as well. And so just to hear her say that, it sounded so simple and simplistic. And it was something I thought over time, as I thought about our relationship, I was like, that's so true. There are times where, especially like a couple of weeks ago when I was sick, right? And I was down for the count. That was more, you had to put a little bit more time in. You had to, kind of not only take care of me, but then you also had to,
I had to glove up, y'all.
Yes.
Plastic gloves on, rubbing on the Vicks Vapor Rub. If you don't put the Vicks on the feet, like the throat, the
Game
feet.
changer.
And this is not
Game
even a
changer.
sponsor. That's not even sponsored. That's just like, just a pro tip when it comes to recovery. But I do feel that like it was definitely helping you more. But something that came to my mind where you helped me tremendously and not being 50-50, I actually think back to when we first met. So before we got married, we've been married for 8 years, all of those things. But when we first met, I was transitioning, and I'm thinking about NFL Combine and kind of draft season, all of that. Me ending my career early, but at the time, like you were working, like it was your place, like
grinding.
I had the Maybach, the Honda Accord.
Hey,
I called it a Maybach, but it was a gold Honda Accord, like an 05.
Come on.
But it was called the Maybach for some reason. I don't know why. Honda.
What?
Come on, at least 100,000 miles.
At least, okay. You better quit because you can get that thing to about 300,000 if you really take care of it.
And so this is actually like people don't know this, but one of the moments I knew that you were the one. And it's like we were dating. Like this is early on. So this is before like I love you, but like I just knew you were different. My car, the Maybach, the Honda Accord, Honda Accord, was having some issues, and it was really reliable. So this was rare.
Yes.
And like I've reached out to everybody I called. Like where there's been that moment where you called like 3 or 4 people and nobody's available. And I'm like, I just met her. Like this might be weird if I ask her like, hey.
And we just met in the club.
We did meet in the club. So that's another element of like meeting in the club
That's a
on
whole
New
nother
Year's Eve.
That's a whole nother episode.
So fast forward, I reach out to you and I was like, hey, by chance, like my car, I just need to drop it off. And this is like, I'm broke to the point at the time, like struggling athlete trying to make it. I'm broke to the point where I wasn't even taking it to a mechanic's shop. I was dropping it off in somebody's apartment complex. Like, hey man, work on this, like
you got
on the side. And you ended up picking me up from that complex. And what really was the like kind of took the cake was not just,
and I had a Toyota Yaris,
and with the dimple too.
With the dimple,
and the dimple, somebody backed into something. There was a little dimple in the back of the Yaris.
I literally backed into my brother. More so, he backed into me. But
so fast forward, I'm like, you picked me up, which I was already surprised. But then you asked, like, hey, are you hungry? Do you want to grab a bite to eat? And I was like, I'm always hungry.
Always hungry.
So
that is something I learned over the years.
And not even realizing, and this was, again, so rare, and this is probably like a pro tip for anybody that's like dating or wants to be different or present yourself differently as someone that's bringing a lot to the table, because I didn't have a lot at the moment. And I just put my car in the shop. So like, we're talking about going to lunch. I'm in no position to pay for my lunch nor both of our lunches. So I'm kind of like, I'm like, I'm going to get the water. I'm going to get the soup, like the side salad.
It's a Carl's Jr.
Went and grabbed some, and you offered to pay.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
I was like,
you want a chicken sandwich? Bet.
I was like, where's the engagement? I was like, where? She's the one. I was like, I think I found her.
That was so, I remember that like it was yesterday. That's so funny. I was sitting on the couch, and that was like one of my only days off too, because I was grinding. I was doing doubles back to back. I was working. I think I only had 1 or 2 days off for school, and that's it. So
this is why. So also you're finishing up at Arizona State. We're in Arizona, but you just mentioned something, the grinding and the working. Like, what was that server life like? Just on a side note.
I think that needs to be another episode, okay? Because you and I have so many stories. The things that we have seen and heard and been a part of have been absolutely, people would not.
They wouldn't believe it.
They wouldn't believe it. And the other thing too is like back of house, if you are in the restaurant industry, you know exactly what we're talking about. The things that go on back of house.
What's one crazy thing you saw back of house?
Babe,
just one. Just one. We're here. They're waiting on it.
We were over by Easy Mills.
Oh, you were
over by Arizona Mills.
That was
so that's
It
different.
was cracking over there.
It was cracking over there.
You got to be careful.
There was, so we used to get bomb threats sometimes. We used to get like the FBI would come sometimes. That's why I said it needs to be another episode. Okay. It was wild. Okay. It was wild.
That's fair.
But let's transition now into what the episode is about, which is, let me ask you, is happy wife, happy life true?
No. No, it's not.
Tell me how you really feel.
Happy wife, happy life is not true. And the reason I say that is for a couple of reasons. But the number one is that there's going to come a point where your partner is going to be resentful or feel like
absolutely.
again, I'm coming 90 or I'm giving up 90 and you're only giving up 10. Where's the compromise, right? And sometimes we've all been there where something like festers, and it's almost like when something goes bad in the fridge, like at first it goes bad and like nobody knows, but like after a week, after a couple of weeks, like all of a sudden the smell, and then it's like there's things living in there. It's like, wait a minute, this is really a problem. But like that's the way that it happens when you kind of continue to not express how you feel, express what your needs are, express what you want. So for me, I think it's, and what we talk about, not just for me, but our approach has been happy spouse, happy house. So there's a world that exists where we both can be happy. You can be in a happy marriage or relationship and enjoy your partner's company, all of those things. But there is balance. Like there's things that we both give and take on.
Right. Which I think that even goes back to what I said earlier with like, it's not going to be 50-50 relationship. Now coming together equally yoked.
Oh. So what's the difference? What's the difference between the 50-50 part and being equally yoked? I'm just thinking for the person listening, they might be curious.
Well, I think a good example is actually how we came into our relationship, which was we both were independent. We both kind of had our own things going on. We had great morals, values, the way that we would treat people. We came from a servant leadership kind of mindset. But then when we came together, it was still like that. But there's going to be times where you may need a little bit more attention, or I may need a little bit more attention. And so it's not going to always be 50-50 every single day. Yeah. That's absolutely not the case at all. And so, for example, right, even just as a woman, there are times where hormonally I may need a little bit more attention, or I may need a little bit more distance even, whatever, sometimes that kind of comes about too. But I think with the happy wife, happy life, what that implies is that the household is going to be joyful and peaceful if the wife is happy. And that is absolutely not the case. It's if you both are happy, if you both are in a place where, I don't know if contentment's the right word, but you're both in a place where I know that if I need something, you have my back, and vice versa. And I'm going to be giving just as much as you are giving. And when we need to do that may vary, but we know. And then you start to get on kind of a little bit of a cadence of like, okay, I know your body language. I know, like I tell you sometimes with your eyebrows, I'm like, what's going on with your eyebrows? Are you mad?
The brows can be
the
a dead
brows
giveaway.
Always say something.
Dead giveaway.
Yes. So I think that it also implies that the husband's happiness either doesn't matter or is not something that maybe as a wife I want to hear, which that can build resentment from men, I would think, because it feels like I'm saying something and I'm expressing either my unhappiness or how I'm feeling about a situation, and you're shutting me down because you think that my happiness doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think to that point, there can be certain things that you're like, I'm really gonna stand on that like I really need you to be able to make sure that like that's a concession or that's something that you kind of give and take on. And I feel like that's something that's so communication focused, where if you're communicating, and I feel like for us, the communication has evolved so much, and that's been such a huge blessing. Like
so much.
When I tell y'all it's evolved,
so much.
Like, go ahead.
Well, let me just quickly give some context. So when we said that we met in the club, it was New Year's Eve. So I think I just turned 22 and you might've been 23 because my birthday's in October. So it's later in the year. And, so I was, having fun. I'm out with the girls. It's New Year's Eve. We're having a great time. And so we were young when we first met in that sense. And we had good communication because we did play team sports. We were also leaders in our employments as well, so we were able to communicate in that sense. But communicating with your partner about whether it's serious conversations or conversations that you don't want to have and you kind of avoid, that's very different than, just being somebody who's, we're natural leaders. And so we can communicate in those ways. But when you do have to communicate your emotions, your feelings, that is something that's very different. And you have to know how the other person also is going to receive the message. Just because I'm saying the message, sometimes if it comes from a certain messenger, you may not receive it. And so we started off by literally going into 2 separate rooms.
Different corners.
You
go to your side.
2 separate rooms, because one thing I told you from the beginning, I'm not going back and forth with you. Like, I'm not. If you've got something to say, you can get it off your chest. I'm gonna sit over here and I'm gonna be quiet. And I know sometimes that kind of like riled you up a little bit, like got you even more hype. But I'm not gonna go back and forth with you, because clearly we're not in the mind space or even the emotional space to be able to have this conversation. Yeah. So let's go into our separate corners. And it started off with just text messages, like just text me. And they used to be long paragraphs, like I've got something to say.
Let me tell you how
I really feel.
Yes.
So that's how it first, like, that was one of our first that I remember, or how we had to kind of start really shifting our communication, because at that time we were also living together too. So that was something that you're adding in, that when you are living with somebody else, you're taking on also kind of how they live just on a day to day, whether it's like, do you have socks on the ground? Do you have like, do you leave your plates everywhere? Like, those are the small things, but then you start thinking big things like, oh shoot, we own a home. Like, we have a mortgage. Are we going to, do the backyard? And, you have bigger conversations that require you to have a different form of communication.
100%. And to your point, I mean, it's a fair call out, because, I did take debate in college and I was ready.
You were ready,
debate.
and I'm not.
I'm not
going back and forth with you.
You want to go back and forth?
You don't want to?
Do you want to?
But
like,
I think potentially you were maybe used to that too.
That's true. Conditioning and exposure.
You were used to the back and forth, and I have never been that person. I will literally just be quiet. I'm going to maybe say 1 or 2 things.
In the silence, and I'm one of the people that don't do well with the silent treatment.
Right.
Because in my mind, it's like, oh, it's all over. Like, you're literally going to pack up and you're getting ready to leave because you got nothing left to say. So let me just already in my mind get prepared.
That's right.
That like,
it's a trigger.
This might be it. Like, it's over with. Like this was the last straw.
This is it.
And so
it might have been over some dishes.
Yeah,
in
like
the
something
sink.
super minor.
Like so minor.
Like, hey, did you?
Like, you're gonna be gone.
Like, but to your point, right? Working through some of those things, and for me, writing it out.
Yes.
Was so helpful. And this might be a tip for somebody too. Like, if you find yourself maybe that your tone elevates, which these are all things, sometimes like also how you were raised, your household, how maybe you saw your parents talk to each other. But like, if your tone starts to get a little bit, right? Tone is elevating, right?
You got some bass in your voice.
Bass in your voice getting a little bit more intense.
I don't know who you're talking to.
It's getting more intense, right? With the dialogue, and you're like, okay, wait a minute. This isn't the most productive way for the conversation to happen.
It's not effective communication.
And the other part, though, too, was not focusing on winning the argument.
Yes.
And making sure that we're winning in our relationship.
Period.
Because you could win the argument. And there's times where I was like, you know what? I'm feeling good.
I'm going to win this.
You know what? I just absolutely won that argument. And then I'm like, man, we supposed to go out to dinner tomorrow. And like... be out with friends and like family and like, we're gonna have to play that role in here and act like everything.
And I'm not the one. I'm not. I will not play that role.
She will sit there and be like,
I'm the one. It's all over my face. I like the memes on IG will say like,
resting.
Oh, when you wear your expressions on your face and it's like, oh shoot, you can see my face.
And I'm gonna play that role. I'm like, hey, let me meet you, my wife, and she's like.
I'm not.
Hi.
Maybe it's a Scorpio in me. I'm not sure. I'm not the one. I'm not going to.
All of a sudden I'm in the car like, hey, are we good? Are we on the same page? So no, I really feel that, because the text allowed me to also like write it out and then reel it back in. And then now.
That's true. Because you're seeing what's in your head and your thoughts, and it's like, oh, you know what? That might be a little too harsh.
Correct.
That might not be, again, effective.
Correct.
So let me backspace, and then maybe rewrite it.
And then shout out to Grammarly, because I hit Grammarly and then it'll
tell
me
your tone.
Disapproving.
I'm here for the tone.
Disapproving. Angry. I was like, who, me? Me?
Yes.
I was like, let me change this to uplifted.
Yes. Uplifting.
Positive criticism.
Yes.
Loving.
Yes.
I was like, okay, this is what I want.
Admiring.
This is what I want the message to be. This is what it was.
Yes.
So like, there 100%. Had to be some. And so, but going to the separate corners, because I think there's so many times people don't go on that discovery of like what works best for us.
Right.
it doesn't have to be what worked best for somebody else.
It does not. Every relationship is different. It's a chew on the meat, spit out the bones type of situation.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means you can listen to somebody talk, and you can even listen to this podcast. There are going to be some pieces that resonate with you that you can then apply to your marriage or your relationship. And then there may be some other things where it's like, that doesn't work for me. And that's fine. Whatever works for your relationship, that's what you should do. Don't worry about what's on somebody else's plate, because you need to be worried about what's on yours.
It's true.
Just period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point, because so often we can, like, I love the movie Hitch, but like, I don't need to be Will Smith, right? No. Like, I can be me. Like, we can take some things that are like, I really love the date idea, or being thoughtful, or the way that this was communicated, keeping it here on my dance moves. Like, all of that I can take with me without it being to the extreme, right? To your point of like, chew out the meat, spit out the bones. That's a great call out.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I have a question for you.
I'm ready.
Do you think that happy wife, happy life implies that potentially a wife is responsible for her husband's happiness?
100%.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
And
tell me more.
I think a lot of times, and I'm just thinking through like what we see, whether it's on TV and just like the experiences, right? It's like, oh, we're going to go out, we're going to get married, right? Like, what's the ring look like, right? Like, is it what she wants? Is it the right diamond? Is it the right cut? Is it the right location, right? Like, did you do all of these things? And this is just the ring. This is just the engagement. Then you have the actual marriage, which is, what does she want?
What does she want?
What's her vision? What's the dress? They're not like, hey man, what's the suit? I'm like, black suit, white shirt? Like, I don't know. Right? And so it's that. Then it's like, okay, where are we going to live? Where are we moving? Oh, when are we going to turn this house into a home? Right. What does she want to do for the decor?
That's right.
Right. And so like all of these times you feel like,
seem to be revolved around your wife's opinions,
and then
happiness.
For me, I'm gonna be honest too, I heard a lot of like the older kind of, what I call the old heads, or like whoever, right? But like, it's unfortunate, but so many people are like, oh, the ball and chain.
Yes.
I'm dragging her with me. Oh man, the wife, I gotta head on home. And it's like this thing where it's like, it's almost a drawback, right? That you have a partner and that you're married. And so many people have gotten so used to that, that I think that becomes the norm of like, oh, I want to go do this. I won't be able to do it because my wife, she's going to hold me back.
I want to hang out with the guys. I want to go to a sports bar. I just want to be, kind of in my space. But my wife's telling me I need to come back home. And
there's balance, because I know right now the guys that aren't going home to their wives or aren't married, and they're like, man, after the game is over, after the bar ends, after the smoke clears, they're like, man,
dang,
it's a little lonely.
It's a little lonely here.
It's a little lonely. Not just whether it's at the top or at the bottom.
Lonely.
It's like a little cold.
Yeah, a little cold. You know something to cuddle?
What do they say this time of year? It's like boo up season, cuddle weather. And in the summer, people want to, jump out there because all of a sudden it's summertime.
It's summertime. Having a hot girl summer.
That's true.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And to your point, I do think that with the implication of the wife is responsible for her husband's happiness, that can also put a lot of pressure on the wife as well, where I'm not only in charge of my own happiness, but I'm now in charge of my husband's happiness. And if I'm not happy, we all have bad days. Like, that's just human nature. That's just what happens. And if I have a bad day, that means my husband has a bad day, which if you have a family, that means our family has a bad day. That's a lot of pressure on the shoulders of a woman. And so I think changing that verbiage from, again, happy wife, happy life, changing that to happy spouse, happy house, that's when you can start. It puts you into a mindset that it's not all about one person in this relationship, because it takes two to tango. There are two people in this relationship, and it's very important that both people are not only getting their needs met, but they're also able to vocalize and be able to be emotional and be compassionate and feel like they have a safe space to be themselves and say what they want to say. And I think that's something that we started from the beginning of our relationship. We always have said this is a judge-free zone. Always judge-free zone. Whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do, this is the space to do it. It's a safe space. And we have carried that on, and it has evolved over these past, we've been married 8 years together, 11 years. And it's been, it evolves. And I think that's something else too that we can think about, is that just because you had a certain mindset before you can change that mindset at any time. Like you can wake up on Monday and say, I want to now change my mindset, change my perspective on how I think about my family dynamic, how I think about my wife's happiness and my happiness. And I actually have heard a new saying that's kind of come out that says, happy partners, healthy marriage. So I thought that was a really good, I liked that, because what do you think about when I say healthy marriage?
To me, a healthy marriage, when I think about like the healthy marriages that I've seen, it's the couples that love spending time together.
Love spending time together. They're
Like,
always together.
It's almost like the question that like
My bestie.
It's like the question that we get,
friend.
all the time is like, are you guys newlyweds? Did you guys
All
just
the
like,
time.
and it's like,
Just
no.
when we went to Cabo.
Yeah,
that was October.
it's like they're
Did
genuinely
you guys
shocked.
just get married? They're like, we've been married 8 years, and
They're
then they
like-
look at us and they turn
They're
away.
like, y'all still like each other? Like, what y'all doing?
Like, what? You must, no, you're lying. Like, you can't. That can't
real?
be. That can't be.
So to me, it's healthy is one, just that you enjoy each other. That you
I like you.
I like you.
I
think that's like the first step.
The
like,
first step.
Do you like
Do
them?
I like you as a person?
If you had one, and I always like to
Come
say
on.
this too, and this is a good for someone that's maybe not married or that's in that process of making a decision. If you have one ticket, only one, to go anywhere that you would want to go, do anything, would your partner or the person that you're thinking about dating or being with long term, would they be the one person that you would invite and you would go on that experience, on that moment with? And for me, whether it's a football game, a concert.
Come on, I was coming to the Super Bowl with you in Detroit when I was in there.
I just-
Unk to the side. He's like, you're not even a Lions fan. I said, I'm a football fan.
So, but like to me, it's a no brainer. Like I wouldn't even have to think twice about it. And I've
Yeah.
got some good friends and like, but it's a no brainer. So if
No-brainer.
that's not your answer, then to me, that's one aspect.
Yeah, it starts at friendship. Like it
Correct.
starts at, we happen to be best friends.
Correct.
But it starts at a friendship. And do I like you? Do I like being
That's the
around you,
first
like you
part.
said? Do I like having a conversation with you? Do we laugh? Like, do we have fun together? Those are
Correct.
just simple, basic.
100%. And then
Foundation, the building
that's
of a
the
foundation.
And then I think when we look at healthy is also, what is your wellness like together? Because a lot of people can, one, maybe look fit or look well on the outside, but on the
Yes.
inside, be struggling with different things,
Absolutely.
right? And maybe have health issues. And so for us, I know one of the things, even something that evolved was like how we get active together. Like
Yes.
we're in the gym together multiple times a week. Like we go on walks, we meal prep, we do different things. So when I think healthy in that sense too, we're also focused on like a healthy mind, body, wellness, whole person.
Right.
Individually and together.
Right.
And then when we do have kids and our family grows, like then it's a broader, like we're continuing to pass that on.
Right.
And so to me, like a healthy relationship has all of those elements, liking each other, enjoying each other, the wellness of like the well-being of each individual, and then collectively together. Those are all things that to me that come to mind when I think of healthy. And then also like you have fun and enjoy. I kind of mentioned that earlier, but like the fun, the enjoyment, like the spark there too of like, I'm drawn to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were actually just chatting with some people behind the scenes, and we were talking about our first date was Dave & Buster's. Don't get me wrong. We were 22, 23, but I'm over here. I'm naturally going to talk stuff. Like I'm naturally going to be like, oh, so you think you can beat me? I'm about to get these buckets in your face. Like I am that person. We're both competitive in that way. So when we went to Dave & Buster's, the first thing we hit was the basketball. You did whip me in basketball, but I also was getting buckets. Like, don't get it twisted. I was absolutely doing that. Then we went to air hockey. I won air hockey, but it was just fun. Like, it was very chill. It was fun. There was no pressure on, let's just see how this goes. Like, let's just be ourselves and go from there. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then we just go on and, maybe we're still friends, maybe we're not, but at least we're open to the opportunity and we're open to what this potentially could be.
Yeah, I love that you said that because it really should be green lights.
Green light.
Shout out to Matthew McConaughey. I just read that book, Green Lights. But it's the theory of if you're driving and all you hit is green lights. And you know that feeling.
Oh
like you're
my
like,
gosh.
man, a 30-minute trip just became a
gosh.
10-minute trip. And you're just like, is today my day? Like,
So
do I need to go get
Do
I need to go get a lotto ticket?
Oh my gosh, I'm living my best life.
Right? And so it should feel like when you're with the right person or spending time with somebody, it should be more green lights than yellow or red lights, where it's like, man, this is really hard.
This
like
is
I feel like I'm
hard.
having to work to enjoy
Yes.
your company
Yes.
or when I'm with you, or
Yes.
maybe after the physical element, like
Yes.
there's not anything left to talk about.
Yes.
All of those things are like more yellow or red flags if you're not truly, genuinely enjoying the person that you're with. And so I just wanted to call that out when it comes to like green lights. It should be smooth.
And I think that brings it back to, right, the happy wife, happy life motto, where that, in my opinion, if from a man's standpoint, that may look like this is kind of a yellow and a red light, because my whole entire atmosphere is revolving around one person, one person's happiness, one person's feelings and emotions. And I'm almost, we always say, are you thermostat or the thermometer?
Ooh.
And
what does that mean?
It's you go ahead, because that's your saying. I actually got that from you.
No, so the idea of being a thermostat or the thermometer are essentially, do you set the tone or are you adjusting to the environment that you're in?
Come on now.
So we obviously want to be setting the tone, right?
Yes.
We don't want to go up and down based on the room or based on the day, based on the news, based on what we're hearing or what people are talking about. We want to come in and set that thermometer and say, you know what, we're going to be, it's going to be 72 and cool like the entire day, no matter what we face or what we experience or comes up. And so I just think being able to set that tone makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if the mindset is that only one person can be happy in this marriage or be happy in this relationship, then that's going to be more of your yellow lights and your red lights. And that's when it starts becoming, gosh, marriage is hard. This is hard. I am now basing how I act, what I say, even how I open up in my relationship based off of one person. And that's not fair. It's just not fair. And I think, interesting enough, I wrote down something and I kind of want to get your opinion on it. If we go, again, based off the happy wife, happy life motto, do you think men are going to be more willing emotionally to open up and have that connection with their partner? Where I even wrote down a quick little saying that said, this was coming from a man. He said, she doesn't care. She doesn't want to hear about me not being happy. What are your thoughts? This is going back to the happy wife, happy life motto. If you're living that through your marriage, this is then what a man has said about, this is what we're living and this is how I feel about it.
So
she doesn't care.
She doesn't care.
She doesn't want to hear about me not being happy.
That's tough.
That's tough.
And
that hurts my heart.
And it does. And I think there's a lot of people that are in that space or in that situation. And I think it starts with kind of the tone that can be set. And so I would ask that guy or, whoever it was that said that, if we were to go back in time at some point in the relationship, did you lose your voice? Did you stop communicating or saying what it is you do want? Because again, I'm all about accountability, and there can be times where I've been guilty of it, right? You're like, what do we want to eat? And you name like 3 things. I'm like, whatever you want. And then we get there and I'm like, we're eating gluten-free, but like at the same time, I didn't convey like, hey, I really want like this, man, I really want this. And so I think the fact that like it's not communicated or mentioned can be one of the biggest elements of, I didn't even know that you felt this way. And I feel like that's what we hear. Like,
but that's also both ways. Cause I know, listen, women, we're guilty of it. It's like, how could you not know based off my body language, based off of the way that I'm over here grabbing this trash bag, that I am upset. I'm communicating with you. I feel like you're not listening to me. Because everybody in every relationship, whether it is romantic, whether it's platonic, whether it's familial, you want to be seen, you want to be heard, and you want to be valued.
Can you say that again? Because somebody missed that.
You want to be seen, you want to be heard, and you want to be valued in any relationship that you're in. And so if I'm constantly saying something over and over and over, and you're not either doing it or listening or taking the next steps, I'm not feeling heard. I'm feeling like I'm communicating, or like you said, I'm not communicating. And I am just kind of, I'm rummaging around the kitchen. I'm kind of like slamming some doors. I'm giving you a couple I'm grabbing the power drill because it's like, I asked you to put this shelf up, right? And so then
I'll take out the trash.
I'll take out the trash. And I think that gets exhausting. And then it becomes that resentfulness that I've asked you or I have vocalized, and nothing has come from it. So now what do I do? Like, what comes after this? But that's, again, if you vocalize. If you don't vocalize, that's something that needs to be worked on. And maybe you take our text message situation that we talked about before, and maybe it becomes more of a text message or something, or even you write a note or something of that nature and you leave it for somebody. But it needs to be communicated.
It does need to be communicated, and I want to throw this out there that it needs to be communicated to the right person, because a lot of times people aren't communicating with their partner or their spouse. They're communicating with their friend on the job or their homegirl or their homeboy, or the fraternity brother, whoever it is, mama, family member. Yeah. And now you've taken it over there, and you're having and everybody. I feel like we've all been guilty of it. We've all been guilty of it at one point or another. Absolutely. But the more that you can have that conversation with your partner about what you're dealing with, to see how you can move beyond that, to share that feedback, it gives you an opportunity to, one, course correct.
Yes.
Like, let's acknowledge that this is the case. Acknowledge that we haven't gone to whatever place that I want to go, or what, we haven't done whatever it was. Date nights, right?
That's one thing we hear all the time.
That's true.
I mean, the amount of women that I talk to that are just saying, I want my husband to take me on a date. I want my husband, I want to get dressed up and look nice for him, but he doesn't plan. He doesn't plan it. He doesn't take the time. He's not, sending me a Google Calendar invite that says, hey, be ready by this time. And, if you want to do it like a surprise, you can. But I need men to step up a little bit more in that sense, where if your wife is vocalizing that she wants a date night, that means you need to plan it. Like, there needs to be an action on your end. And it doesn't need to be you need to go out and spend a whole bunch of money. Like, we do a lot of date nights at home, honestly, where.
And when we were, and let's also go back. We've been together for 8 years, but we had times during our marriage where we went through financial struggles.
Yeah, so absolutely.
It's us sharing one In-N-Out French fry.
That's right.
Like, this ain't, call it a date night.
Not animal style either.
No animal style.
Regular.
Like, can extra ketchup?
Can you some extra ketchup? Can you throw some extra fries in that bag?
And we will eat it in the car.
Yes.
So I just say that to say of, like, there has to be that balance of, to your point, it doesn't need to be expensive. And when it comes for fellas, when it comes to the date nights and putting it on the calendar, treat your relationship like it's that big client or that big opportunity or your boss. Because I know if I get a message from my boss or email or something like that, you're on it.
Like, what?
If you
when
get
that Slack drops,
boom,
I'm on it.
Light goes off, you're like, okay, what do I need to do? What do you need?
Yeah.
And so it's like right now it's a top priority, because in the mind,
priority is the key word.
And the connection is, if I don't do what my boss says, I potentially lose my job, or I impact my income, or it hurts my growth. That
consequence seems to be higher, though.
Correct. Well,
then potentially that if you're not putting that same priority on your marriage, then you're going to be what's the consequence of that?
100%. And I think so many people, and I hear it so often, and one of the things that I'm grateful for that we do is that we have always asked people that have been married for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, like, tell us the keys. Tell us, like, what is your biggest recommendation? But then we also ask people that have been divorced. Like, I've been divorced 3 times.
What are
twice.
some things that you would have done differently?
Tell me what happened? What was it? And one of the things that I consistently hear from people that have gotten divorced is like, I didn't communicate the way that I should have. And a lot of times going through the divorce, they're not having to do mediation.
Yes.
They're having to talk. They're having to go through it. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, what if y'all would have done this prior to it getting this far down the line and kind of like this out of hand? And so to me, prioritizing the relationship the same way that you would do your boss or your mom or your whatever it would be.
Absolutely.
It makes it now, I've got the calendar. I'm going to literally find a place, and you don't have to overthink it. It doesn't need to be
and it's also effort. You're talking about effort. I mean, you have to really put the effort into your marriage. I mean, it's not something that you can, once we get married, I'm done dating my wife or I'm done dating my husband. Absolutely not. You're consistently dating, because you're also dating new versions of yourselves. We just talked about this. We were like, gosh, I feel like we're on our second or third version of ourselves. 100%. And we also are still learning how to navigate in some areas, but because we built that foundation of effective communication, we start there, but it doesn't mean that we don't get frustrated. It doesn't mean that we, still don't need to potentially take some time and then come back to a situation. But that's the thing, is we're always going to come back to the situation. We're not going to let it fester. We're not going to let it be something that we avoid, because that avoidant behavior, that can be very detrimental.
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy. And going back to that healthy marriage piece, it's not healthy to avoid a situation, avoid a relationship, avoid critical conversations. They're hard to have, and maybe you need to kind of build your toolbox up with, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
You were saying build a toolbox up, but something that was in our toolbox, a gem that we got from some married couples that I just thought of, was not also going to sleep angry. So like basically,
I've heard an opposite of that too, which I was think is interesting.
So you could go to the separate rooms, but what we've done over the last 8 years, the time that it takes to send that text or to share that olive branch of like, I was wrong, or like, I'm sorry, or like,
ooh, I was wrong and I'm sorry, or
those are two
difficult to say.
Those are tough ones. And sometimes it's easier via text than like verbally.
Correct.
But if I would say for us also, the timeline, it's a lot different if you say I'm wrong or I'm sorry the same day that it happens versus 6 months or 6 years later, and someone's been like, this hurt me for 6 years.
Yes.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And now your relationship is starting to have those hurt moments and hurt feelings.
And it may not be perfect in
resentment.
It may not be perfect in one text.
Not at all.
And like it's all forgotten about, but at least there's an opportunity to, like, again, for those people that were like me, of like, man, one argument, are the bags packed? Like, you know what I'm saying? Is your partner going to be out there on you because like the argument and she went silent? Like, you don't have to have that fear also, because there's been communication. Correct. We're not going to sleep like, man, how long is it going to be weird like this for? Or any of those things. I just think it's so much opportunity when you communicate and share to be able to have that healthy dialogue in marriage versus it goes off the deep end, or someone doesn't feel heard, seen, or valued.
Yes. And so I'm going to kind of say the adverse of what you just mentioned, of not going to sleep mad. And the only reason is because I heard this on a podcast maybe a week ago. And I heard a couple say that they may go to sleep mad. And as we know, if you go to sleep mad, even if you do apologize, like, you're still kind of tossing and turning, like, you're not getting your best sleep sometimes because you're still thinking about like the argument or what somebody said. But I have heard that some couples will actually go to sleep mad, but when they wake up in the morning, they talk about it. That's kind of whether you kind of, you drink your coffee, you drink your tea, you wake up a little bit, you're in a mind space. It's just because you're able to kind of get your mind out of, you've had time to sleep on it. You know that old saying, like, I'm going to go sleep on it and then I'll give you an answer in the morning. I like that to a certain degree, if that works for you. Yeah. What works for us is not going to sleep mad, but if you need to go to sleep mad and if you wake up in the morning, you have to talk about it. And it's because this is something that can fester. This is something that can build resentment. And these are the small little, moments in a marriage where if these build up over the years, we've seen couples that once their kids leave and they're empty nesters, they get a divorce. And you're like, oh my gosh, they've been together like 30, 40 years. How?
Nothing to talk about.
Nothing to talk about. We've had so many moments of this built up resentment that I don't like you. Yeah. I don't like you anymore. Or I don't like
this new version.
Or I don't like this new version of you.
Ooh. Yeah, it's tough. No, that's tough.
So that's just another option. Again, whatever works for you in your marriage, in your relationship, just take whatever nuggets you need to from this. But that was just something that I heard that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, and I think a commonality in both of those approaches, whether it's not going to sleep angry or it's the next day after you sleep on it, is that you're addressing the root of what happened.
Yes.
It's not being swept under the rug. You're not ignoring it. You're not acting like it never happened. No, you're not talking to somebody else about it. Like, no, we're actually going to address it, whether that's in a handwritten letter, in a text,
Post-it note,
in an audio message. Right? Like, whatever the delivery mechanism needs to be, let me just make sure you got it. Let me get it off me. And you feel
no third party.
No, the third party is
that's the third party, y'all. Don't do it.
Because the full message never, like a game of telephone, the full message never gets there. And then you get a piece, and it's like, she said what?
She said what?
He
And
said
then
what?
it causes a bigger issue.
And then the bigger issue could also be the fact that there's now this person that's an intermediary, whoever this person is now in
and
the
it ain't your business.
It's not their business. And so it's a lot easier if you write it down, if you share with your partner,
Yes.
or if you at least give them the opportunity
Yes.
to hear, like, this is how I'm feeling
Yes.
about this in particular.
Absolutely. And if it's accompanied by, some food, that's fine.
That's true. I'll tell you what.
Listen, feed me, okay?
you will-
if you
you
feed
will
me
get a-
and say
you-
I'm
you-
sorry, it's done.
You'll get a different response on a full stomach.
You get a different response on a full stomach on both.
It goes for both
but
parties.
But it also goes to thoughtfulness too, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, you might be doing it because it may be a little bit of tail between the legs, but you also took a moment to think about me, and that makes me feel good too. So it's already like a step in the right direction.
It counts.
It counts. It counts. So I really, really like that. Now, do you think that a healthy relationship enhances both partners' experience, where it's not about one person's happiness, but it's about our happiness together?
So I would say yes and.
Okay.
The reason I say yes and is because the happiness side, I feel like there's got to be individual happiness and then collective happiness. And I think a lot of times, and that goes back to the equally yoked, right?
Yes.
No matter what you're doing, you see it a lot with just different areas, right? Whether that's like sometimes this person needs, you use Michelle Obama and Barack as a great example.
Yes.
When he's the president, I'm sure she had to, like, he's so focused on
That's
running
8
the country.
years. Yeah.
She's also like giving
And
maybe
raising 2 young
like she's
women.
maybe going 70 or 80% at home because she's raising the kids
Absolutely.
and she's, holding the home front down, right? And so when I think about that, there comes a time where I'm sure she's like, hey, I want to focus on the Netflix docuseries.
Becoming
my book. Like,
book.
so I use that example because I think for each relationship, if one person is just thriving, there's still that opportunity for one person to have resentment of like, oh, it's great, but it's all about you.
It's all about
I think
you.
we see it a lot in sports, right?
Yes.
There's so many athletes that have incredible partners and spouses, and like you have no idea like their background, how credentialed they are, and the business that they do, and all of the
Absolutely.
things
Yes.
that like, and how they're helping their partner be the LeBron James
Absolutely.
or the whoever at the top of their game, and you have no idea, but like they're super focused on like investing into them because they also see that like this is their window.
Yes.
So it can be seasons, but I think the more that you can make it each person, like we're both individually happy and we have our pillars and we're revisiting what that happiness looks like, right? What's the vision board for this year?
Yeah.
What's the 5-year plan? What are some of the
Absolutely.
goals that we have individually and together? And if
Absolutely.
like one thing is one partner wants to go to every continent and the other's like, I never want to leave the state,
Right.
like that would be something that like, hey, either you got to do some solo trips or some, some things like join the travel club, but like don't hold one person back or hold them down from their passion or purpose or the area that they want to pursue, right? I feel like it's got to be all three. Individual, and collectively, but it can take time. It's not like all at once per se.
Yeah. And interesting enough, we're going to have another podcast episode because I know quite a few high value, high achieving women that find it very difficult to be in relationships with men because men don't want to see them shine their brightest and actually want to kind of bring them down and hold them back and say, you can't be bigger than me. You can't shine brighter than me. And, that's male ego. But that'll be another podcast episode.
I was just going to say, it takes a lot. I know Nick Cannon, it took a lot.
Nick Cannon.
I know it took a lot to carry Mariah Carey's purse now. I know. But sometimes, that's the queen of Christmas. You got to go ahead and grab that. You got to tuck that purse underneath
you better
stand right there to
football,
you know what
okay?
I'm saying? Ready for when she walks off the stage. If that's something that like that you can do. Some people feel like they can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to, as we wrap up, quickly, let's give just either a little bit of our advice that, again, we've learned over the years ourselves. But like we said, we've also asked many couples over really 11 years about their relationships and what they think. So what advice would you give men who want to open up emotionally or want to connect with their partner, but they live under a happy wife, happy life atmosphere?
Oh, that's a great question. if you're currently in a happy wife, happy life atmosphere, but you want to be more open, you want to speak more and maybe turn the chapter or open up a new page in this sense, I think the first thing is vocalizing how you're feeling, right? Like, what are the key things right now that would feel like it's a little bit of happy husband or happy spouse, happy house? Like, what does that look like for you?
Right.
Is it converting the extra room, right? I'm just
Are we
saying,
giving a man cave
if
here?
you need the man cave, got to do the man cave, right? But like, if there's something like that you feel like it's a genuine, like, hey, I really have been wanting to do this, bring it up, right? Mention
But
it.
I don't want it to be used as an escape.
No, I don't. Yeah,
More
that's
so,
true.
okay,
That's true.
thank
Because
you.
it could be an escape,
It could be an
which is
escape,
a bigger issue.
Which is a bigger issue.
So I don't want the man cave to
okay.
be an escape, but I'm just using it as an example of, and I would really say if someone wants to like do an icebreaker to open the door, kind of maybe bring a wall down that is happy wife, happy life, I would start off, add the date night to the calendar. So let's start there. Pick a place, location, send the invite or let her know, hey, we got plans Friday at XYZ. We're going to go. It doesn't have to be super expensive. Get dressed up, go out to eat. But when you do go out to eat,
Or what? Yeah.
right, when you do go out or whatever the activity is that you're doing, allow it to be something where y'all can talk and engage or walk and talk.
Yes.
And in that time when you're walking, you're talking, you're maybe the sun is setting, you're enjoying the vibe. It's an opportunity for you to engage. Ask, how are you doing right now?
Yeah.
What are some things that
How can I support you?
How can I support you? What are some of the things that you want that I can be doing in a relationship? What are some of the, because typically by asking the question of what someone would like for you to do in a relationship, they should ask you, is there anything that I can be doing for you in the relationship as well?
Yeah, it should be
like
reciprocal.
it should be a two-way conversation. And so you started by saying, how can I serve you? What can I do for you? And you get to the answer, might be something you have to add in. Hey, I'd like to do more of these date nights once a week. But then also you say, well, I would love to be able to maybe do a man cave, or for us to go to a sporting event, or something that I want to do more. I don't like the color of the new room, whatever it is that you feel like you've been kind of like giving in on and you haven't spoke your mind. Use that as an opportunity, but do it with compassion.
Thank you. I was just about to say that.
Do it with compassion. Make sure that your tone and your delivery, 'cause that's something I had to learn.
Yes.
The tone and the delivery matters. It matters so much, because you could have like, you could be saying like, thank you. But if you like, thank you, and you look at somebody like that, you're like,
yeah, it's like, well really?
Are you really,
Do you mean thank
like,
you? Or?
you know, what's the, why is the
Yeah.
body language like
Yeah.
that? So to me, that would be talking about it, kind of like bringing down the walls that may be you not communicating, but then also just speaking from the heart and like opening the door in a setting that's just the two of you.
And to add to that, I think something that would be great too for couples, we actually just in October, we brought like a stack of questions. It was specifically Love Lingual was the stack of questions. It's 5 categories. It asks about, intimacy, relationship, family, individual, and I forgot what the last one is. But we brought that with us, and we're at dinner, we're pulling the cards, and these are in-depth questions. You're asking questions that this isn't like an everyday, I'm asking you what you want to eat, or did you fill up the gas tank? No, these are in-depth, very emotional, deep connecting questions. And I think the more that you can get deep and connect on that level with your partner, the more you're also going to have grace for them. Because that's something else too, is both men and women. We have to give grace to our partners where, okay, your tone was a little deep, the bass was hitting, and I didn't like the way that you talked to me, but I'm not going to let it slide, but I'm going to give you that moment. And then I'm going to come back after the fact and say, hey, what you said, it hurt my feelings and this is why. Or I felt this way and this is why. I feel like when you are able to articulate how you feel, and if you need a journal and kind of figure out what that looks like for you, then that's going to be much easier for you to be able to communicate with your partner. And again, communicate effectively. Because you can communicate, I can be talking to you, but I'm not effectively tapping into that deep root where you feel safe enough in this space to then say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And I am, I as a man too, am feeling overwhelmed, because women feel overwhelmed all the time. I think we naturally get used to it, especially the moms that I talk to. There's so many balls in the air, and there's something called invisible labor, which we can have another podcast episode about that. It's so much happening at one time. I need my partner to step in and help me with certain things. Like, I don't want to have to always ask you. And if you see something, say something, right? Yeah. That type of situation. But it's been something over the years that has been, you work on it. You work on it. As long as you are both putting in the effort, you're both in this together, then you will get through the big situations, the big obstacles together, no matter how difficult they are. And so I just am so glad that we were able to talk about this today. I think it's something that will impact so many people. And I just want to say thank you so much to our CoupleyFit fam. You are absolutely amazing. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please like, comment, and share this episode with anyone that you feel may need to hear this message. And as always, thank you for helping us to create generational health.
Peace.